Okay, so we have 15 minutes until the break, so that's what's left in this window. You better have questions. We had a lot of diverse stuff up here. I think this it was interesting because there's so many ways to answer the questions we were asked to answer, and there were a lot of different perspectives here. The V6, the policy, the developer side. Please ask questions because I couldn't think of any. So.
Ask questions, or I can talk about interoperability after all.
Yeah, we can let him finish the interoperability slide.
Don't make me do it.
Okay, so question to the audience, right? For those of you who push the products and who make the products, does this help you, or did you just get 5 different opinions that all conflict and make things harder? Does nobody want to admit that their life just got harder? All right, we have a brave soul.
I think the life for some of the vendors, especially like F5, 3 of our gold sponsors, A10, Brocade, and Ransomware, we're all at the stateful portion of the network. So what's really missing is like we have the packet level stuff, and then we have the application centric, where we really need to have a discussion on how the 2 parts fit together so we can actually deliver the applications. So life was already hard. But that was it.
Yeah. The end. Yeah.
So I guess the question I'll put back to the panel is, how do you guys see those 2 pieces fitting together? Will we have standard APIs for such complex devices?
Matthew, you just want to start and work this way?
You know, so I was thinking about Cisco and UCS, and you know, first of all, it seems like when it comes to the big vendors, they all seem to be getting their feature sets through acquisitions. But you know, thinking about how Cisco, for example, has the whole Cloudpia suite, you know, that they've got to deal with certain levels of their stack, and then they've got this entire cloud orchestration through the Cisco Intelligent Automation for Cloud piece, and how those 2, in an ideal world, since this is all a platform, they would probably only be one giant API and SDK, so I could consume them holistically, and then probably in my ideal world, of course, they'd be open enough that they could also deal with other people's infrastructure through modules or plugins or something of the like. I think in the long run, though, the answer to your question is yes, they'll get there, but I mean, it's probably up to the people in this room and people who are doing that development work to make it happen.
Jeff, do you have anything to add? Either of the Jeffs?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking a little bit about orchestration layers and the fact that whatever SDN winds up being, I think it's going to be essential that it's not just some sort of standalone controller that we're talking to directly, but it's something that integrates into existing orchestration or whatever orchestration becomes. And and that's not likely to be the same vendors. And may not be a vendor at all. Maybe some sort of open source. And so I think APIs are essential. Going to your comments about interoperability, APIs are going to become essential to be able to plug in whatever you want down at the network layer, still have SDN, still be able to orchestrate the SDN, presumably with the same layer that is orchestrating your compute and storage.
So I'll take a stab at APIs from a slightly different perspective. So my company we're not a Google, we're not a Facebook. We don't have 40,000 coders ready to go. We have a very lean development shop side. We need APIs. We need clean APIs. We need stuff that works because I don't have 50 people to throw at it. The thing that terrifies me about APIs is when you talk about an API, you talk about what's made available to northbound, right? But without a standard API, I'm back in SNMP world again, where I have a standard data structure, but nobody really tells me any more than that. Or I have XML without a schema, right? Or I have a REST full API, which everybody says, oh, it's a REST API, so it's standard, right? So yeah, of course that's wrong, but let's have APIs, that's great, but if you have a Python API and you have some Java bindings, we have nothing, right? Or if you speak southbound something that's different from what you speak northbound, now we're back in that same irreconcilable proprietary hole again. That's the thing that terrifies me about APIs, is we're kicking the can down the road. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not a coder by nature. I don't know what the words are to say homogeneous in both directions. Maybe I don't know. maybe I write my own shim layer so that I can build my own APIs and interaction on top of what you have, but I can't do this with 3 developers, right? All of whom are right over there. But you guys got a lot of work to do. So that's my take. APIs sound great, but so did SNMP, so did XML, and those were hard. Let's not make this just as hard.
So I'm going to try to channel Brian since he's not here.
Okay.
And in talking with Comcast, I think they would agree. I'm not speaking for Comcast, but I think, when you have a heterogeneous routing set of equipment, an API suddenly seems like a great thing. Write it once, run it anywhere. No, wait, that was Java. But you hit a really good point. The problem with APIs are generally, they're defined in the mind of whoever wrote the API, and that may not be the right model or give you the right tools that you need to get access to whatever. And so they can be very limiting as far as, well, sorry, you just don't get access to that that one piece of the routing table or infrastructure because the API doesn't give that to you.
Yeah.
And so as a result, or it is in one vendor and it's not in a different, and so, one vendor makes it, and so then you get this API that's a common, the lowest common denominator across everybody?
Yeah.
That's not necessarily going to do you any good, so.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe the answer is, Yang, right? Yang solves everything, right? Common model and you're done. Who knows, right? But it's a problem. You got up when I asked my vendor question, so please.
No, that's easy. I'm easy. Speaking of IPv6, the reality is we all chase the money, and the money are the end users. Let's be realistic. It's not the vendors. It's not Google. It's not any of those things. It's the end users. And until the end users move over to where V6 is what they demand, we will resist it as much as possible because there's no demand. So the question I have is, one, how does SDN help us make it easier for the user to demand that type of service?
What's in it for the user? Let me ask that first. So why would a user ever demand IPv6? Because if I'm the guy sitting at the end of my Comcast line, do I even know what an IP address is?
Yeah, I shouldn't have to care.
No, I think that, I'll disagree. I think that first of all, I would take it differently. If an end user ever has to understand what SDN is, we've lost, right? I mean, forget it. They can't get their VCR to, their DVR to stop flashing 12. Right. So having the end user have to try to understand. Now, I think end users are just as an adage. My mom one time, I'm the IT department, right, for my family, and so she calls up, she's in LA, and she says, Jeff, that thing on the screen, it's not there anymore. It's like, oh, great, Mom, what thing? That thing that was up there, and it's not there. And so after an hour, I figured out that she had deleted one of the toolbars out of Microsoft Word, and she needed it back. And I was like, okay, fine. So the other day, she calls up and she says, Jeff, the internet's down. I went, oh, okay, Mom, the internet's down. Yeah, I don't think so. It's working for me. And she goes, well, I pinged the router. And I went, whoa, time out. What reality world is this that my mom says to me, I pinged the router? And I said, Mom, what? And she said, I have no idea what that means, but that's what the Verizon guy told me to do. And said, if I type this in, I'm pinging the router. And she said, well, I can't, the router's not answering. And so I was like, okay, we've made a big step, but I do think that people are going to understand. So to your question, right, what is, to me, two things. One, everybody in this room, if your website doesn't run V6 today, you should be shot. There's no reason why all of our content shouldn't be made available on V6. And as more and more content, when we run out of addresses and more things that somebody wants to talk to, the only way they can talk to it is V6, that drives it. No one cares. I said to Vint, right, why are we not getting V6 deployment? Because you did too well with V4. Because the IETF spent too many years patching all of the stupid holes in V4. We did CIDR, we did NAT, we keep going on, and finally they said, right, the IETF said, we're going to sunset V4. No fixes to V4. No fixes to the protocols, no fixes to everything else. I think that's going to be an interesting experiment. I doubt it'll last. But I think it's a matter of, we need V6 content. We need places where people want to go. And then we do need the vendors to be able to provide it. And I will applaud Comcast for making V6 pretty much available ubiquitously across their network.
So along those lines, let me be the small business owner. So you're asking me to go spend $20,000 or so out of my very small pool of money on something that has zero ROI to deploy IPv6 on my website that nobody's trying to reach today. Is that correct?
Wait, I guess I'd like to, IPSO, it cost us 2.5 hours of time to convert our website from V4 to V6. I mean, it was a matter of going in, adding a few Quad A records. Yes, where we have it, we just happen to be on an AWS cloud that already had V6 addresses, but it wasn't $20,000. I mean, and even if I'm a small business, it's if there's a contingent of people that might be able to reach me via V6 addresses, I think that I might choose an ISP. Well, actually, I take that back. I think it would be awful if business owners have to understand the difference between V4 and V6. I'm just saying it ought to be simple enough. I mean, everything these days seems to be dual stack. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm stumbling because I'm at awe. Why would it cost $20,000 to bring your
Forget the $20,000. The anomaly is this. I sell bicycles on the internet. I've written an application to sell I had an application written for me somewhere, and now you're saying that application should be, I don't have anybody that's asking for anything that you're asking me to do. Why would I go do that? I'm still going back to until the users are demanding IPv6, it's in nobody else's business mind. I understand you have an agenda because you're technical. I do too. Look, I basically the network at Via West is all mine one way or another. I'm the janitor. So V6 is very near and dear to my heart, and I've got it deployed.
So I don't want
And
to.
it's great because nobody uses
some really
it.
smart things.
Well,
I see two reasons, really quick. I see two reasons why end users will demand it. There's either they want to get on a road that takes them somewhere, or they want to get on a road that's faster. And so it either is a destination that they can't reach with V4, or that V6 is going to give them performance or security or something else. And until that, I don't think you're going to have end users demanding ever
So
V6.
let me cut this here because it doesn't say IPv6 up on the slide, right? I think the SDN tied to this, right? SDN as policy routing gives you lots of policers and things. And if you want to apply pressure to get people to convert before we are absolutely boned on address space, you do policer type things, right? But be that as it may, right? IPv6 is important. This is not an IPv6 desk. This is the end of our time. So we are done with the panel. There are cookies, and God forbid I get in front of people and cookies. So thank you for your time. If you do have questions, I think we'll be kicking around. Certainly I'll be here the rest of the day. Thank you very much.